Hi, everyone. Thanks for watching this hopefully quick walkthrough of the changes and the proposed changes for simplification of the setup for Google Artifact Registry, which is now called Google Artifact Management, the Google Cloud IAM integration, and also the runner flow. There are a few things that I wanted to include there because we're not only hoping to simplify the setup scripts, but also the experience and trying to make it a little bit more consistent if possible. So this is what you already know when you get into the Google Artifact Management. You have this empty state if you haven't already set up the Google Cloud IAM integration. Nothing has changed here. So when I click Set up Google Cloud IAM, I'm now redirected to this flow, this configuration or setup flow that has a couple of sections here. So I can already see what's going to happen and what I need to set up, which is great. And I have a couple of questions here that will customize the setup based on what I can or cannot do, or, in this case, if someone has already set up things on my behalf. So the first question here is, set up workload in federation. And if you haven't yet set it up and you don't have the pool and provider with the required configuration, you have yes, learn how to set up, or no, enter details. And the second question is, okay, if you want to set it up, can you manage workload identity federation? And you must have the permissions to create pools and providers in the Google Cloud project. So if I indeed need to set up workload identity federation and I want to learn how to set it up, and I have the permissions, that's all great. But what if I don't have the permissions? So in this case, if I select no, I'm shown the instructions to share the information with someone that can actually manage the workload identity federation on my behalf, or invite them to set up. So this is similar to what we already have today for the manual setup of the Google Cloud IAM. And we have the link to the setup instructions, the identity provider issuer, and also a new entry here, the recommended pool and provider ID, so that I can provide the path to this project or this group to hand it over to someone to create the pool and provider with that provider pool and provider ID to avoid conflicts. And finally, after workload identity federation is set up in Google Cloud, restart this setup. So I can, return here when I want. And if I click cancel, I'm redirected back to the list of integrations. If I can effectively manage workload identity federation, you see I have the connection and then the setup steps. If I just want to enter the details, so I don't need to set it up, it's already set up, you will see that once I select no, the setup step is omitted and we only have the connection, and I can jump directly to enter the details because I don't need permissions. In this case, I already have the details. So let's go through this flow first. So the Google Cloud project already has a pool and provider. I don't need to set up workload identity federation. I just need to click next and make the connection. So then here I enter the Google Cloud project ID, the project number, the workload identity pool and provider, both IDs. And you also see here we have some validations that I'm hoping that we can also implement in these fields to ensure that users are entering information with the correct format. And then I can click save changes, and that would save the integration. Or I can go back, as you can see here. I have elected to not go through the setup, but let's restart this and set up again the Google Cloud IAM. And so if I actually want to learn how to set up, I have the setup step. I click next. You can see here that I selected setup yes. I can manage yes. And the connection details, I enter the project where we will create the new workload identity pool and provider. And also, you can see here it says new workload identity pool and provider, and the recommendation to avoid collisions, use unique IDs like this GitLab project or group path. And here you have the GitLab this project path, which is already pre-filled here to help the user and avoid, reduce the number of steps they have to make. And once I click next, these values will be used to create the workload identity pool and provider. So as you can see here, I have a summary of what I selected in the previous step in the form. And I then have the instructions on how to create the workload identity pool and provider in your Google Cloud project with the required configuration. So install the Google Cloud CLI and then run the following commands that in this case, I'm showing the placeholders, but these would be replaced with these values that I selected in the previous form. And after the setup is complete, select Save Changes to continue, or if you want fine-grained control of who can access Google Cloud, see the Google Cloud documentation. So I can click Save Changes, and there you go. The Google Cloud IAM integration is now active. I can see the details here of what I've selected when I was setting it up, and I can enable or disable it and click Save Changes, or I click Configure to go back to the setup flow that we saw before. So now let's imagine that I have already set up the Google Cloud integration, sorry, the Google Cloud IAM. It's already working. And now I want to set up the Google Artifact Management. So I go back to the Google Artifact Management. It no longer shows me the empty state, which is already current behavior, but I'm jumped into this flow where I have already two steps, the repository and the setup permissions. For these fields as well, I'm hoping that we can add some validation on the format that users can enter. And after I enter these details, these fields and values will be used for the setup permissions step. And similarly, we have instructions on that. You have the placeholders field. These would be replaced with the fields that I entered previously. And here at the top, we also have a note that you can use the following recommended setup or customize it with other OIDC custom claims and artifact registry roles, because these is, actually we're making an assumption based on the default permissions for the GitLab container registry, and we're doing the same for the Google Artifact Registry. And this is why you can see these comments here: grant Artifact Registry reader role to GitLab users with at least a guest role, and grant Artifact Registry writer role to GitLab users with at least a developer role. And so we're making these assumptions in case someone does not want to use this recommended setup, they can go ahead and customize it with that information. And yeah, again, save changes. I see the integration is active, and I see the fields, and I can go back and enter the configuration fully if needed, or disable the integration altogether. And finally, going into the register runner. This is a separate flow that does not need the Google Cloud IAM or the other integrations, but I'm showing it here because I'm also proposing some changes to make it a little bit more consistent, because we're using the same behavior of entering information in form fields, which is then used to build setup instructions and setup scripts. So this is largely unchanged, this top part. One thing you can see here, if you're not familiar with this recent change, this is something that's already in the product, is that in the last step of creating a runner, which is the register runner, the platform field was moved to this last step. So when you create a runner today, it's not in the first step, it has been moved to the last step. So here again, click Google Cloud. Here, one tiny change to the copy is that we added this link if people don't want to use the following recommended setup, and instead they want to customize the Terraform configuration, or they want, for example, to include it in automations that they have already. And this is, again, largely unchanged. You enter the details here for the Google Cloud Project ID, the region, the zone, and the machine type. Click Next. And similarly, we can see that there are some, the summary of what I entered in the previous field, and these setup scripts will use these values to help me set up GitLab Runner, to configure the Google Cloud project, to install and register a GitLab Runner, and that's it. I can, similar to the other flows, I can click back to change the fields, or I can click Edit here to change the fields. And that's it. Thank you so much for your time. I've left most of the big changes as images attached to the issue as designs. You can comment there, and you can also play around with the prototypes yourself with the links in the description. Thank you.